In a history-making moment on the floor of the United States Senate this afternoon, the Select Committee on Ethics confirmed what we suspected the day Senator John Ensign announced his resignation last month. If he had not resigned, John Ensign would have become only the 16th senator in the history of the Senate to be expelled. Today, the Senate Ethics Committee announced that it has uncovered substantial, credible evidence that former Senator John Ensign, Republican of Nevada, conspired to violate and aided and abetted violations of federal law by trying to cover up an affair Ensign had with a political aide who was the wife of one of his top Senate staffers. Barbara Boxer, the chair of the Ethics Committee, announced on the Senate floor that the committee is referring the case to the Department of Justice for possible prosecution. The committee found substantial, credible evidence that Senator Ensign aided and abetted violations of a post-employment lobbying ban by helping his former aide, Douglas Hampton, find work after having an affair with Hampton's wife, made false statements to the Federal Election Commission about a $96,000 payment from Ensign's parents to the Hamptons, and that payment may have violated campaign finance laws. The report also found that Senator Ensign may have obstructed the committee's preliminary inquiry when he tried to get rid of documents. Before Senator Ensign's affair became public, Oklahoma Republican Senator Tom Coburn tried to help his friend negotiate a seven-figure settlement with Ensign's legislative aide, Doug Hampton. Those talks fell apart, and Hampton went to the media with details of Ensign's affair with his wife. Ensign announced his resignation on April 21st to take effect on May 3rd.
My caution to all of my colleagues is to surround yourself with people who will be honest with you about how you really are and what you are becoming, and then make them promise to not hold back no matter how much you may try to prevent them from telling you the truth. I wish that I had done this sooner, but this is one of the hardest lessons that I've had to learn.
The chair of the Senate Ethics Committee, Barbara Boxer, said today that her committee had enough evidence to warrant the consideration of Ensign's expulsion if he had not resigned.
When you are in a position of trust and power, don't abuse it. Don't misuse it, because people can get hurt, very, very hurt.
Joining me now is Melanie Sloan, Executive Director of Citizens for Responsibility and Ethics in Washington. Melanie, thanks for joining me tonight.
Thanks for having me. On
page 47 of the Senate Ethics Committee report, Section A, you are given full credit for starting this investigation by filing a complaint that says on June 16th, 2009, Senator Ensign held a public press conference in which he admitted he had an extramarital affair with a member of his staff, later identified as Ms. Hampton. On June 24th, 2009, the committee received a request for investigation of Senator John Ensign from Crew. The request alleged that Senator Ensign's conduct with Cynthia Hampton constituted employment discrimination on the basis of sex in the form of sexual harassment, and referred to the press report in which an anonymous source stated that the senator had made a severance payment to Ms. Hampton. It goes on to specify how they asked you to submit more documentation. You did, and then following that, they began their investigation. The report issues no other initiating action other than getting your request for the investigation. How do you feel this evening, having in effect started this investigation in the Senate, and see where it has come out?
Well, we're obviously quite pleased. It could have been a little sooner than the 22 months it's taken, obviously, but it's clear that Mr. Ensign did resign because he was under threat of expulsion, which, as you said earlier, is so rare. And that's certainly what we were calling for all along, that Senator Ensign should be expelled. But I think this report also highlights how much the Department of Justice has fallen down here. Earlier, just a few months ago, the Department of Justice declined to prosecute Mr. Ensign, instead focusing only on Doug Hampton, his former aide, prosecuting him for violating lifting the lobbying ban. But now we see the Ethics Committee sending the matter back to Justice, and maybe the Justice Department will be embarrassed enough that it will reconsider and finally bring charges against Mr. Ensign.
Yeah, this was a very strong language in this referral today. Let's listen to what Senator Boxer said on the floor today about sending this to the Justice Department.
Ethics Committee rules make it clear that whenever the members of the committee have reason to believe that a violation of law has occurred, we shall report it to the proper authorities. So we have a solemn responsibility indeed. It's actually a mandate to refer possible criminal or civil violations to the Department of Justice and to the Federal Election Commission. And that is what we have done today.
Melanie, one of the surprising things, I think, in what the Ethics Committee reported today is that there are no surprises, that the story actually unfolds once fully investigated exactly the way it seemed to as these facts were coming out in dribs and drabs in press reports.
That's exactly right. The one thing that had never seemed true at all was when Mr. Ensign had said the $96,000 that was paid to the Hamptons was really just a gift from his parents. And that, of course, seemed like severance right away, a severance payment to the Hamptons. And, of course, Doug Hampton had also had a bunch of contemporaneous notes indicating that it was. And today we learned, indeed, there's lots of evidence that that payment was a severance payment, which would violate Federal Election Campaign Act. It also suggests that John Ensign's parents, Michael Ensign and his wife, submitted false affidavits to the FEC, as did Senator Ensign. And in fact, it seems like their lawyers in that situation knew and helped them to facilitate sending false affidavits, which suggests potentially some legal disciplinary proceedings as well. So really, there's just a lot of wrongdoing all around here. I think the one thing we hadn't previously known was that Mr. Ensign had also tried to destroy documents and destroyed records to continue covering it up. And that's an obstruction charge, and that will cause him even further legal problems.
Quickly, Melanie, before we go, what is your sense of what the Senate Ethics Committee would have done if you had not filed that complaint?
Well, Mr. Ensign's conduct was so egregious and it was so well covered in the press that I think it would have been hard for them to ignore even without Crew filing a complaint. But then again, the Ethics Committee doesn't have a reputation for taking a tough action in any case. So I think Crew's actions really helped spur them on here.
Yeah, it seems they do have to be pushed, but when they go to work, they do have a history of doing a very thorough job. Melanie Sloan, thank you for joining me tonight.
Thanks.